was Thanksgiving this week. Last week? Recently. Let's go with that.
Yeah, let's go with recently.
And as what frequently happens to me, I caught myself into a situation where I was starting to explain things to people, which is always a bad move. Never explain things, even when people ask. I've gotten really careful about that. That when my spouse is like, "Oh, what is this thing?" You don't really want to know, do you? It's like, "Oh, maybe I'm kind of interested." Stop it. You're just trying to bait me. I know what's going on here.
Well, you have to figure out why they're asking the question. And if they really want to know, then, you should explain it. But if they're just being polite, or if they just want a surface level explanation, then you got to be able to identify that and explain it.
I think what it is that she loves me and she knows that I enjoy explaining things sometimes. Just takes that hit.
Yep. She's just teeing you up so you can talk about something that you want to talk about. Yep.
It's like, this will keep him busy for a while.
Keep you out of trouble.
So I brought multiple cameras with me to Thanksgiving because obviously, and one of them was the film camera. I was trying to finish that roll of Porta 400 from my last trip, and my mother-in-law was like, "Why film?" or something to that effect.
And you were like, "Let me point you to 4 episodes of my podcast that you can listen to."
Oh boy, this shouldn't be a film podcast. Good thing this isn't the pre-show. We talk about film too much, Daniel. It's a real problem. We do. And I got into the whole concept of explaining DPI and film scanning to my mother-in-law, and it was a real problem.
Yeah. That seems like you got pretty deep there if you're talking about that.
I mean, I'm talking about how I'm trying to decide whether or not I actually want to be the kind of person that shoots on film, and how ultimately what it ends up being is like, I shot this roll of film and now I have to develop the roll of film and now I have to get the film into a digital format. And if I want that to be the highest resolution possible, what I realistically need to do is take pictures of the negatives and then color invert them. And so what I'm effectively doing is taking a picture, developing it, and then taking a picture of the picture to get the picture.
Yes, and that's exactly what you're doing. And it does sound ridiculous.
She thought so as well.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it. I don't know. I was thinking about it more, and if I go down this road, I have that macro lens. Now I have a 2x teleconverter. I can go 2x on my macro.
That's true.
But what 1-to-1 macro means is that the physical size of the thing is the size of your sensor, and my sensor is smaller than 35 millimeter film because I'm not shooting full frame. And so I can't actually shoot a picture of the negatives at the highest resolution I can shoot unless I do multiple stacks, which sounds horrible.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yep. And so obviously what I probably should do is I should get like a GFX 50 camera and get a macro lens for that and then get a 2X for it. That way I can shoot medium format macroed more than 35 millimeter so I can get even more detail.
Do you remember how you got to this whole film thing when you were like, I should start shooting film so that I can get a medium format camera and shoot medium format?
Oh, shoot.
And now you're like, I need to buy a medium format digital camera so that I can support my new film habit. This is how it happens.
Yep. I was thinking, what is the cheapest system I could get into? Like an old DSLR, but something that can still tie into an external monitor so I don't have to try to look into the back of it. And also a macro lens. So I'm like, what is the cheapest, oldest, but still high resolution Nikon camera? Because I'm pretty sure I can get a Nikon, whatever F mount macro lens for $20, maybe 30. But would that be like an 850 or a 750?
Man, I don't know. I don't know Nikon numbers, but I'm kind of confused about it though, because doesn't the dynamic range and color quality and etc. of that digital camera affect your results?
I mean, to an extent, yes. You're going to shoot them in RAW, and then you're going to be able to. You just want to apply it as neutral as possible, and so you just hope that accurate color rendition is going to recreate the look of the film.
I guess, yeah. It seems like a lot of work to me,
doesn't it?
I don't know why anybody would do this.
Daniel, just for the joy of photography.
Did you finish that roll of film?
No.
Is that why that camera's sitting there behind?
Exactly. I got to take it with me everywhere until I shoot 4 more shots.
How many did you shoot when you were explaining all this stuff to your mother-in-law?
I think I took like 4 pictures when I was there.
Oh, okay, so you got to take that many again.
I took a picture of my nephew, and he's like, "Oh, sweet." I was like, "You can't see this picture."
Yeah, that's the other thing. You try and explain that to somebody. Oh, you can't look at it until 2 weeks from now.
I was wondering if he knew what film photography was. I was really hoping he'd ask me. That would have been a good Thanksgiving.
Yeah, you could have explained it to you.
Could explain film photography to an 8-year-old and the DPI. Oh boy, yeah. So did you have a good holiday?
Didn't do all that. I don't think I took any pictures, or if I did, I just used my phone.
That's okay.
Because I'm a bad camera podcaster.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into it.
All right. Welcome back to the Camera Gear Podcast. I'm Daniel.
And I'm Lucas.
And we're here today to talk about the gear, software, and techniques we use to shoot photos and video.
In the same theme of everything old is new again, I have a topic that I want to get into here. And it's because I came across this camera on the internet. It was Instagrammed at me, as things often are. And I feel like, similar to some other things that we've brought up, I'm like, oh, hey, did you know this exists? It's been out for like a year. And I'm just finding these things out way too late. But we're going to talk about it.
Well, what is it?
Have you heard of the Camp Snap?
I have not.
Okay.
I guess I'm not getting those Instagram targeted ads.
Okay, so this thing is $65, and it's developed by a family out in California or something, or Canada. I'm not sure which. And it is did you ever go to camp as a kid?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, whenever I went to summer camp, I would bring a disposable camera with me, and I would take pictures, and like those are my memories from camp. And like, as an aside, I have been painstakingly scanning all of my old photos to digitize them. And I recently scanned like a whole section of camp photos from like 2005.
Oh man. I bet there's some memories there.
Yeah, it was fun. But, fun, exciting. Like, you get your digital camera, you're, taking all the pictures, and when you're done, you take the flash out, and then you start flashing at people, and then you electrocute yourself with a battery. We've all done it. Anyway, so this Camp Snap thing, it looks like an old disposable camera, about maybe a little smaller, but it's not. It's a digital camera.
Interesting.
And it has a display on the back that is like an LCD display, like a clock, not like a full color whatever.
Yeah.
And that shows you, or I guess maybe it's like an MIP or whatever. A little display shows you a number, and that's how many pictures you've taken, and that's it. You can't preview the pictures or nothing. It is a digital camera.
Yeah.
But it has this little 8 megapixel sensor in it. And I was trying to find information on this sensor because it's like whenever you look at the data off of the files, it says it's like an iCatch SPCA 1628, which is basically a security camera. They took like a security camera 8 megapixel sensor and stuck it in this little, looks like a disposable camera that costs $65. And it's a fixed focal length that shoots from like, 5 meters out to infinity in focus, and there you go.
It looks like it does have an LED flash on it.
Right.
It's a rechargeable battery, and it uses, they say, a TF trans flash card, which I think is micro SD. I can't remember.
That sounds right. It's SD or micro SD.
Yeah.
It's nothing complicated.
One thing that's interesting is that memory card is secured by a screw. Like, you have to actually like unscrew something to pull it out.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And they say like it's drop proof, and you get kind of like vintagey pictures. I think most of the photos are shooting, like your lower light stuff is like 1/30 shutter speed, for the slower. And it's just, it takes bad photos.
Yeah.
Like, think about all the photos you took whenever you were at camp, and like how motion blurry they were, and everything was flat, and this is just going to be the digital version of that to a T.
The shutter button is in the worst position I've ever seen for a camera.
Oh, I didn't even take note. It's like
it
is pretty far over.
Like in the middle on the top.
Oh, geez. Yep, it sure is.
That's That's interesting.
Yeah. It's a little like inch thin. It's like 4.5 inches wide, 2.5 inches tall. You know, it's a little digital disposable camera.
I mean, it seems like they're shooting for a very specific use case with this, like by the name of the product, and all the marketing on that site talks about, like, you know, your kid doing this and like not being distracted by a screen, and like the memory card's secured in with a screw so that it doesn't get lost. And like, it feels like they're aiming it at that specific use.
Oh yeah, definitely. Even if you think about, I'm just going to take snapshots with my phone, then like you're now going to go back and look at all those pictures on your phone, maybe even like while you're there, and maybe you get distracted by Instagramming them or TikToking them or whatever kids do these days.
Yep.
And the idea here for the parents and the people who put this together is that, you know, you're at camp, you're trying to disconnect, like you're not, you know, on your phone, you're not on a computer, whatever. So here's a camera where you can just like take the picture and keep going, and you don't really need to think about it or worry about it, because like you captured the memory and you're not trying to capture, you know, the Mona Lisa or something. And I mean, now that you would actually, that was a painting, not a picture, Daniel, which is actually, if you think about it, the original camera was a paintbrush.
That's too deep. We can't go there right now.
Sorry. Anyway, so yeah, like that's the purpose of that.
Yeah.
But that hasn't stopped all the advertisements on Instagram, because like, this is an Instagram camera.
Oh, for sure.
I don't care what you say. I don't care if it's for kids at camp. This is for like teens shooting for Instagram and camera YouTubers who like shooting film.
If the X100V isn't hipster enough for you, here's this camera.
Yeah, exactly. And so it just made me think about this. And then Moment recently came out with their long weekend camera, which is...
Yeah, that's right.
And I don't know if we talked about that one or not, but that's
I don't think we did, but I saw it somewhere.
Very similar size and style, where it's a fixed aperture, you know, 1/100 shutter speed film camera that shoots 35 millimeter film.
Okay, so that one actually, this one's digital. That one actually shoots
film.
Yeah,
so that one's digital. The Moment long weekend is a film camera.
Okay.
And I'm trying to remember how much it costs. I'm just going to pull up this link real quick. $50.
So, yep. I mean, that I'd call that about the same price point.
Yeah, so similar price point. And then you have the Kodak H35N, which is almost the exact same thing as the long weekend, but it shoots two verticals onto one. So you get 70 or 72 pictures off of a 36 roll film because you're shooting two verticals. And these are all kind of like the same thing to me of, here is a film thing or a digital thing that's this cheap $50 easy camera where you're not focusing really, you're not setting exposure, you're just literally pointing and shooting.
Yeah.
But not to say they're point and shoots, but they're kind of point and shoots, but they're not really. And then like the image quality out of these cameras is just not good. And I know that you can get really good pictures on film, but you have to
not
have
with those optics.
Exactly. You have to have a good lens, and you have to be like meter the lighting and set the exposure. But whenever you're just rando shooting, and you know, it has to be within a certain distance for me to be in focus, and the camera is just going to shoot at like 1/50 or 1/100, you're going to get motion blur. And you know, if you're not exposing for the different things, and like some of your shots are going to be over and some are going to be under, and it's like between the digital version and the film versions of these, it's just like I'm trying to figure out why these are coming back.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, I think.
I guess like my question here is, you know, photography has gotten really good. Digital cameras and digital sensors have gotten super good. And you have the people who are going out there and like they're tired of shooting on their phone. They want something that's better than their phone. And so they're shooting with an X100V, or they're shooting with like a Ricoh GR3. And those are small, light, easy to carry around, take fantastic photos. And then you have phone cameras that also take fantastic photos now. And those are always with you, and they're easy point and shoots. And yet there's still this weird market in the middle that's like, what if you want to carry an extra device that takes worse pictures so you can post them on Instagram? And I want it. Like,
you can't help but want it.
I want all of these, and they're like $65. I mean, the chances of me owning one of these cameras before this time next week, very high. I considered buying this camp cam on podcast today.
Oh man, I didn't know it was that serious.
It could still happen. But Daniel, they take like horrible pictures. And this has been my thing with the film camera is like, I have my digital camera and I have my film camera with me. Why am I not going to take the picture that's the best picture I can take? Why am I going to take a bad picture because it's easier?
I think we've covered you wanting to shoot on film at length on this podcast, and
it's been terrible.
To me, that's a different question than like why somebody would use one of these cheap cameras.
And that's the question that I'm trying to kind of get at is like, there is clearly a market here, and I know the camp cam is a very, very narrow, specific sell, but it is still catching this broader market of people who want, like, they want their pictures to have a look and feel to them that's not within their control. Like, they don't want to have to do all this Instagram editing, but they want to have this nostalgic look to something, I guess. But they also want it to just be easy and to snap the photos and then be like, I don't know, there's like this market, and I don't necessarily understand it because the photos are definitively worse as far as from like a, you know, empirical judgment of what's a good photo. And I don't know, why are we doing this to ourselves?
I think it's less of a commentary on photography and more on technology and our relationship with it, because I think that people are so connected to their phones now, and, you know, such a big part of people's lives, especially kids, you know, just like glued to their phone. I mean, you see it with people of all ages where it's just, as soon as you pick up your phones, you know, there goes 20 minutes, there goes an hour. And I think this is sort of a response to that, where it's like, what can I get that will let me take a photo that's not going to tempt me to get on TikTok or Instagram or whatever. And, you know, I'm trying to simplify my life and, you know, have less technology, and that's kind of my way to do it. And I think I actually was reading this morning, somebody said that anytime there's like a big move in one direction or like, you know, a big new trend, there's an anti-trend that kind of goes with it. And so in this case, it's like, you know, there's obviously been this huge push towards social media and being more connected and having like more technology right there and like always being able to reach people and all that. And this feels like part of the anti-trend that goes with that, of like people wanting to disconnect and get away from the technology and not have that stuff in their face all the time. And I think they're capitalizing on that with cameras like this.
So people who want to still capture memories and capture the moments of their life, but don't want that to have to be tied to their phone is kind of what you're
That's
guessing.
kind of what I think. And I mean, and also just fewer decisions. I mean, we have really good cameras that can take really good pictures, but there's a lot of decisions to make. And so, you know, especially when you shoot film, but even with, you know, like a Fuji camera, you know, you're having to decide, you know, what settings do I want to use? And it's not always just like a quick snap. And so it seems like maybe this is intended to like keep you in the moment, and you're not focusing on photography, you're just focusing on what's around you, but you're also like capturing that for later.
That's been one of my, so I'm a big snapshot person. I love having a camera with me and just taking pictures. And I have normalized it with all of my friend groups, and they just don't think twice when Lucas has a camera in his hand. And it's been a long uphill battle, but we're there.
Yeah, it's definitely true. I'd agree with that.
And this sounds like one of my arguments that I've had for prime lenses, of why I love primes, which is if I'm doing that, if I'm just taking snapshots, I don't want to have to think about the framing of the zoom.
Yeah.
I want to pick, you know, 16 millimeter, 35 millimeter, something like that, and just shoot with what I have. And I'll set it in, you know, aperture priority at like 2.8 or something, or 5.6, and just shoot. And that appeals to me for taking snapshots and using primes and making it as low friction as possible. I think it's the same thing that appeals to me about these kind of cameras, where it's like you can get these fun, interesting things. When I have a mirrorless body with me that can shoot RAW, I'm almost always going to set that to JPEG and RAW, because I'm like, what if for some reason I take the best photo I've ever taken by accident? Which goes to the other thing that I always say, which is my philosophy of photography is a broken clock is right twice a day. And so what if I get that broken clock picture? You never know. I'm going to want the RAW. And so now I'm shooting RAW plus JPEG. And then now I have an extra workflow. Instead of just dumping the JPEGs when I'm done, I now need to go through all of them and like pick the ones I want to edit. And now all of a sudden I'm back into like full photography workflow.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're shooting on film or you're shooting with something like this Camp Snap garbage, it's not garbage, it's probably a fantastic camera. It looks terrible. Anyway, you don't have that option. You've taken that control away from yourself so that you want also, in addition to being in the moment, are able to not have the burden on the back end of what am I going to do with all these photos.
Yeah. I do think that part of the lifestyle this is pushing forth is that you can't be like, well, I'm going to take my Fuji camera and this camera, because then you have that decision again, and oh well, this is the real moment, so I'm going to use my big camera. It's like,
right.
You have to like just take this with you, not even use your phone to take pictures, and like, I don't know. It's interesting because this doesn't feel like a camera that you go out to do photography with. It's more of just like, I want to get some pictures as I'm out doing something else.
What about as like a festival camera?
I was going to say, I think using it at like a theme park or for something like that is, I could maybe see it being a good use for it because it's cheap. And so if something were to happen to it, it's not the end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, they seem pretty small too. So it seems like potentially good for something like that.
Like if you go to a music festival, if you go to, like I went to Meow Wolf a few weeks ago, and you can't, they say, don't bring an interchangeable lens in here, but maybe you want to take pictures of things like this that are basically point and shoots. I mean, like you can get you can have a Sony R1R. No, crap. I forgot the name of that camera.
You mean RX100?
The RX. Well, it's not the RX 100.
You mean the full frame one?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like RX1R or something.
Maybe I did get it right. Anyway, like you have something like that that's like super, super legit. But
I mean, honestly, you could probably, in a situation like that, you could probably get away with the XT30 with the 27mm pancake lens.
Yeah,
they wouldn't know.
They wouldn't know. But like something like this, you're walking into Lollapalooza or whatever, and you got your teal Camp Snap. No one's gonna care. They're like, yeah, these are just for you.
Yeah.
And it communicates that to the people that you're walking through, and then now you have your fun little camera for all your fun little pictures. And I mean, I think there's a lot of appeal for people who are doing those social things that are restricted in the way that doesn't allow, commercial photography.
Yeah. Now, as for whether this particular one is the right choice, I don't know. I mean, I like it better as an option than the film ones that you mentioned, mostly because I still think film is super impractical for actually like sharing with people. And I mean, just the fact that you have to get it developed and wait for it is kind of annoying. Like maybe you want to go do one of those things. It's part of the
excitement, Daniel. I don't know what you're talking about. You have to like wait patiently.
To me, that defeats some of the purpose of it. But on the other hand, I mean, the quality on this thing is probably not that good. It's only 8 megapixels. It's a security camera sensor. I haven't seen pictures from it, but it just doesn't seem like it's going to be that good. So there may be a better option, but I think I like the segment as an idea.
There's a whole world out there of like point and shoots that are less than $100. And you can get like a Nikon something or whatever, a Coolpix camera that.
Yeah.
I have a Kodak point and shoot camera that's like a 1-inch sensor from 2009 that probably takes as equally bad pictures as this Camp Snap thing, and it's smaller and it has a 35x optical zoom. So like, I could probably do fine with something just like that. It's like, this is really cool. I guess it's it's the image of it of I have this faux disposable camera and like I can drop it and it only cost me $65. I mean, yeah, sure, you get a better point and shoot camera that's 6 years old that you bought off eBay for $12 and it's going to take better pictures.
Yeah.
But I guess like I'm missing the point if I start optimizing for image quality and price on these things.
Yeah, well, but I mean, part of the point of it too is not having a screen, not having settings.
True.
That's the other thing. Even a point and shoot camera will have stuff like that.
Right. So. Yeah. You divorce yourself of all of those things and you really are just looking through the plastic and taking a picture.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it'd be interesting for you to get one and try it, but it's I think it's an open question whether that particular Camp Snap is the one that you would want.
I mean, I am sitting here on their website. I can buy it with Apple Pay. I don't even have to enter my information. And I mean, it comes in brown, aqua, Pink. That's not bad. Black's dumb. I'm going to skip over that one. Forest green looks pretty good. It reminds me of the Nikon ZF with the forest green. That was a pretty good color. You can get it in white or yellow. The yellow's pretty fun. What color would you get it in, Daniel?
I would probably go with the forest green just because I like that color for electronics.
Yeah, I would want it to be bright. The aqua's pretty good. I like the aqua, but I also like the yellow. I should definitely buy one of these right now, right?
You should. And then next time we shoot an event, you should only bring that camera.
Oh my gosh, that would be so funny. I so bad want one of these, and I can't imagine ever using it. It would just sit on a shelf.
I mean, for the price, it's not that bad for like a lark.
Oh yeah, I mean, like it's $65. Like yeah. I should totally have one of these just for the gag of showing up to an event shoot. Like, I'm ready to go.
I think you should get one.
Oh boy, I don't know why I'm waffling over this thing. It's so stupid and so fun. The pictures are gonna be terrible. I'm not doing this today. I'm gonna think about it for one more time. You almost got me. I'm like finger hovering over the buy button here.
I do think that some of the trips we go on, you know, if we go down to the beach, go on a camping trip or something, I think it could be fun for something like that.
Yeah, it definitely could. Those pictures are going to be awful.
Yeah, they are.
I feel like I would almost rather buy the Kodak H35N, and then I could scratch the film itch and shoot double the pictures and then seriously never finish a roll.
That's what I was about to say is you can't even finish a normal roll of film and you're telling me you're going to finish 72. Of course, maybe with something like this, maybe you're doing more, you know, you're not planning ahead as much and maybe you're more willing to shoot quickly. But I mean, the development costs are the same, right? Like you still have to pay. How do you even get that developed if it's two vertical pictures?
I think they just figure it out, or you cut it in post. I don't think it's a big deal. Or you can think about it as like each picture is two pictures. You know, think about your single photo as two moments, and so you're telling a story with two pictures instead of one, but they live together, and so you just always take two pictures.
That's way too hipster for me.
I don't know. I think it's fun.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I think you should get one of these. I guess you'll have to think about which one you want.
Oh boy. Probably get the moment long weekend one so I can support those moment guys.
Yeah.
Okay. We got another topic on here.
Is this more or less hipster than the topic we just talked about?
Oh man. We probably could have gone longer on that, Daniel. Anyway. Oh geez, I'm like looking at this list here, and the next thing on the list is that Kodak Super 8 camera.
That one would be more hipster than this.
I don't know if we can get into that right now.
I think we should put that one off.
Yeah, we're gonna put that off. The next link I have on here is, I don't know if you know this, but the magazine Popular Science released their 2023 best mirrorless cameras.
I did not know that. I just pulled it up, so don't try to get me to guess these.
Yeah, so in tradition of this show, I wanted to run through what non-traditional camera reviewing sites think about the most popular mirrorless cameras.
I definitely disagree with quite a few of these.
So. No, this is good. So this is photo. Like, keep that in mind.
Okay.
All right. So best mirrorless camera 2023 EOS R5. Wait, is that that's the one with IBIS? Sorry.
Yeah,
I'm looking at this wrong.
They don't have just like a best camera. They've got different categories.
They have
here.
Best for pros, best for APS-C, and best for low light.
Mm-hmm.
So best for pros, Nikon Z8.
I think I do agree with that. I mean, that's not bad. I might have said Z9.
Sure,
but
sure. Z8's newer.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like that seems like a fine choice.
They're clearly not limiting themselves to the year 2023 because the R5 and the XT5 and the Z6 Mark II are on here.
Yeah,
all of which are older than that.
Yep, which is fair. I mean, they're saying that's the best choice now. I mostly appreciate that we're seeing a Nikon on a list like this.
I'll allow it.
Yeah.
Nikon Z8's a really good camera.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe next year when the A9 Mark III releases, it might not make it to the top of this list, but we'll see. Best APS-C, XT5.
I bet you like that choice.
Yeah, that feels pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting that they picked it over the XH2. I feel like from a user perspective, the XH2 is more friendly. I think that the dials discourage people.
Yeah,
from
but
Fuji sometimes.
for photo, I think the dial and the screen are two things that the X-T5 has in favor.
Oh, interesting.
Because the screen is not a full
Oh, you
flip.
meant like the screen orientation.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I agree with that. I just think that for me, the dials are a big deal, and I'm excited about them. But I think that for some people, they wanted to be able to just set it in manual or set it in aperture and just rock and roll. And that's maybe a little more familiar to them.
Yeah.
All right. We got best for low light photography. Nikon Z6 Mark II.
I don't know much about the Nikon Z6 Mark II's low light capabilities, but I guess I was surprised to see not a Sony for this.
I'm also surprised. Like, obviously, if this is for photo, you're not going to pick the A7S III because it's 12 megapixels.
Right.
And so you're probably going to pick something that's in the 26 range. Maybe you're not going to go up to 46, 62, 63. But even still, like a Z6 Mark II is getting pretty long in the tooth.
Yeah.
And I do wonder like why you wouldn't pick something like an A7 IV. Like though the Sony cameras just have better ISO ranges or something that has like better dual gain. I know that like the Nikons are good and they have good files and that sort of thing, but
it sounds like their reason for why they picked it is because it's particularly good at low light autofocus. So it can low light autofocus down to negative 4.5 stops. Or
it's
EV
all
rather.
about the autofocus.
And it even has a special low light autofocus mode. So I think that's probably why they picked that. That's why they said they picked it.
If my focusing in the dark was one of my criteria, I would get that DJI like laser focus thing and slap it on a Lumix camera.
Oh man,
cool. Unstoppable. All right, best for vlogging, ZVE1.
Seems like a fine choice.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
And then they had a few runner-ups on here. You got like the A7C for their vlogger runner-up. They got best budget as the EOS R100.
I was glad they picked the R100 and not the R50.
Really?
Yeah, the R50 seems so limited. I think the R100 is a better choice.
I thought it was the other way around. I thought the R50 was the one that, like, it's like for an extra $100, you get a ton more features. Like the R100 has, you can't move the screen. It is basically a really old Rebel DSLR style body.
Right. That I was wrong about that. Yeah, they should have picked the R50.
Yeah, because it's like what $100, $150 more to get an R50, and then you get infinitely more features.
Yeah. That one's a mistake. I was surprised. So the best with in-body image stabilization is it looks like they had like a tie between the EOS R5 and the R6 Mark II, and I don't know. That's kind of one thing for photo. That's a weird category, and I know this is for photo, and that's probably the only reason they could pick these. But for video, the Canon IBIS just does not seem good.
No, it doesn't, and it's weird and wobbly. And I think like they do have good IBIS for photo, but if I was picking a camera for photo IBIS, I would pick the OM1.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's micro four thirds, or even the new G9 Mark II from Panasonic, where you can shoot 100 megapixel, focus shift images handheld.
Honestly, this one feels to me like they wanted to get the R5 in this list, and that was how they found a way to do it.
Do you think those are affiliate links?
I'm sure they are affiliate links. I don't know. It just seems kind of shoehorned in.
Yeah, it does. It does seem weird that's there on that list. I mean, so like the Canon ones are maybe out of place. Everything else seems basically fine. The Nikon's a weird pick.
This is better than the Artings list for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, maybe Artings is updated again.
Maybe.
I don't know.
I don't think we have time to get into that today.
I think I need to keep looking for more non-camera website best camera lists. I'm just going to keep bringing those. It's a really passive-aggressive segment, I think.
Yeah, a little bit.
All right. Okay. Do we have a main topic today, Daniel? Or do you want to talk about the Super 8 camera?
No, I think we need to talk about the DJI Osmo Pocket 3 because we've been pushing this off for so long.
You mean you don't want to talk about black point in cameras?
Man, that's deep.
And all
Not
of
today.
the GFX 100, the Deuce controversies.
No, we've got to get through this Osmo Pocket, man. We've had this on the list for a month.
When did the Osmo Pocket 3 release?
I don't know.
October 25th.
Yeah, it's been a little while.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, not as long as it could have been, but
okay. So DJI Osmo Pocket. This is not their action cam, which is the Osmo
Action.
Osmo Action. Is there an Osmo Vanilla?
There's an Osmo, and it's a mobile phone gimbal.
That's confusing.
Yeah.
So the Osmo's a gimbal. The Osmo Action's a GoPro competitor. And the Osmo Pocket is the one that's a gimbal with a drone sensor on it, basically.
Yeah, it's basically like a little stick that has a small gimbal on top and a sensor from one of the Mavics.
Right, exactly. So this is the third iteration of that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's new and improved and way better in every way.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I've always thought these were really interesting products, and I think in the past you've kind of felt like there wasn't a point to them, and I don't know. I mean, I never bought one, but I just thought it was a cool idea, like having something with maybe a little more stabilization, be able to do like a smooth pan or something. And the 1 and 2 both had some neat features, but they just didn't quite hit the mark of something that would actually be useful. And so I was curious with this one to see if they've, added enough to make it more compelling.
I feel like the tables are turned here and that I inexplicably can't tell you why I want a Camp Snap. Why do you want an Osmo? It doesn't make sense to me.
It is kind of like that. Well, that's the thing. I don't think this is the right camera for me. I think that this is a really good vlog camera, and that's not something that I really do. So it doesn't make much sense.
But what if you did, Daniel? What if you
What
just
if
started
I
vlogging?
My life isn't interesting enough. I don't leave the house.
You got to just tell those stories, man. You tell to like what's happening around the house today.
I don't know about that. I don't think anybody
This
wants
is
to
my
watch that.
5th cup of espresso. More B-roll.
What is this, YouTube in 2017? No, I just think they're interesting. And, people take so much footage with their phones, when you get on Instagram or something, or even YouTube, you see a lot of phone footage. And I think that having a gimbal lets you get some shots that look different from that, because you can do like a really smooth pan or like a smooth sliding shot, things that are hard to do on a phone. And, I think some of it's that, and maybe some of it is kind of like the camp snap type thing where, here's something you can hold in your hand that's for one purpose. It's just for shooting video. And maybe that makes you focus more on that rather than, like having this multi-purpose thing.
Right. You don't have to make a decision. You're shooting the video when you pull that thing out.
Mm-hmm.
I would expect the stabilization on this is just going to be better than even an iPhone 15 with action mode turned on.
Well, it's hard to beat physics.
Right. Because like even still, like you watch iPhone 15 action footage, you still get that digital jump stuff where like there's this weird pixelation shift in the image as it's trying to keep it stable.
Yeah.
If you're on a physical gimbal, you're going to have much less of that, especially if you're not dealing with, OIS.
Yep.
IBIS. Sorry, not OIS.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, so what got me with this new Pocket 3 versus the Pocket 2 when it came out, like for whatever you're going to use it for, it is substantially larger.
Yeah, it is bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Which is, that's good and bad, right? Because I think the features compared to the two are better as well.
Have you seen like a king size Snicker bar?
Probably.
If that's the Osmo Pocket 3, then the Osmo Pocket 2 was like a fun size.
That big of a difference, huh?
No, but that's what it seemed like to me. It was. I watched a few different YouTube videos on this thing, and I was like, why do they have a child holding that? Why is that person holding a log?
It is pretty sizable. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not that exaggerative, but it did get significantly bigger.
Yeah.
But also like a lot of really cool features.
Yeah, like it has a 1-inch sensor. Which
Yeah.
maybe that's the same sensor that's in the Air 2S, because that also has a 1-inch sensor.
Yeah, so I was trying to dig back and see. Okay, so it's a 1-inch sensor, and I was like, okay, which drone that DJI currently has of the 15 drones that they sell and that their insane lineup has a 1-inch sensor? And the answer is none. None of the current drones have a 1-inch sensor. They're all slightly bigger. So I'm like, well, when was the last time they shipped a 1-inch sensor? And it was the Air 2S.
Interesting.
And so I'm assuming that it's the same as the Air 2S. I put that in here. No one's said that. There's been no like official press release or whatever. I haven't found. It's hard to find the model numbers for the sensors on these sort of things without having the metadata off the camera or whatever. And so I'm just guessing. If DJI is reusing a sensor, probably that one.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's got similar features like the 10-bit D-Log M. That's also what the Air 2S supports, so it probably is.
Which, Daniel, why can't they just put log in these things?
Well, so that's what's frustrating is like the Air 2S used to have log, and then they switched to this D-Log M thing.
Yeah, they took it away.
Yeah, which doesn't make sense. I mean, I think they did it because people want to shoot in log because they want like they think it's more professional. And on some cameras, I don't know if the drones are like this, but on some cameras, you know, you don't get 10-bit unless you shoot in log. And so I think they know people want to shoot in log, but then they also know that people are just going to post that uncorrected log footage online. And so they're like, let's just give them D-Log M, which is going to look a little bit better because it's already a little more contrasty. It's a little bit closer to what you could just post. But I don't know. I don't like it.
D-Log M drives me crazy. And like, if you're shooting in log, you know, usually a good camera company will publish a white paper. Here's the gamma curve. Here's the color space. This is Rec 2020. This is ACES, you know, C or whatever. Or like, here's the curve. Here's the color space and blah, 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 blah. There is no white paper for D-Log M. We don't know what color space it is. I assume that maybe it's Rec 709, but some people think that it's Rec 100, which is a slightly different version of Rec 2020, basically an HLG, HDR style color space. So they can like fit more whatever, but you don't know. Sorry, 2100, not 100, Rec 2100. But like, I don't know. We just don't. And so if you're bringing this footage in and you want to color space transform it to match your other footage so you can, you know, let's bring it all into the same color space, and then now we're going to grade it all together and have like one final look. You're just guessing. You don't know if you're doing it right. And like common practice is, you know, if it looks good, just go with it. But it's frustrating. It's frustrating that it's a flat profile that you have to grade, but they don't give you any information on how to grade it. They're completely silent on the color space, and it just seems less usable and just flat. And it's really annoying.
It seems less professional. It's like they're not expecting somebody to use this camera as part of a larger shoot. Sure. And so that's why they're thinking like, oh, well, you can just kind of like tweak it until it looks good rather than having something that you can get everything into the same color space and, you know, like match clips.
I don't remember if DJI has a D-Log M LUT or whatever. They do have a D-Log to Rec 709 converter, but I don't necessarily think that they have a D-Log M. People will sell you one. You can find them all over the internet.
Yeah.
But that's the other frustrating bit is like if you're shooting in log and you just want to have the most dynamic range and the best color fidelity and you don't want to have to deal with it in post, you slap the manufacturer's LUT on that and then you have good footage, like the best version of the footage when you're done, and you didn't really have to try that hard. But DJI isn't even doing that. There's like, here's this weird maybe Rec 2100, maybe Rec 709 flat profile in quotes. Have fun color grading it, I guess. And I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
It's just this weird, like non-professional, non-usable amalgamation of fake log.
I agree. Some things I do like about the camera.
Anyway, so to be clear though, the Osmo Pocket 3 comes with D-Log M.
Yes.
Not good D-Log.
Yep.
Okay.
Unfortunately, yes.
Go ahead.
Some things I do like about it. So one thing, that 1-inch sensor is a surprisingly good spec compared to a lot of similar sort of cameras.
Yeah, definitely.
So like if you compare it to like, let's say like the DJI Osmo Action, which is their action camera, or the Insta360 Ace Pro that was just announced, both of those have a 1/1.3-inch sensor. And that sounds like a pretty good number, but the 1-inch sensor in this one's like 30% bigger than that.
Wow.
If you compare it to a GoPro, the GoPro 12 has a 1/1.9-inch sensor.
So it's almost like 4 times bigger.
Yeah, it's 90% bigger than that sensor.
Nuts.
Yeah. And so the low light performance on this should be significantly better than those cameras.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Which like that at least partially justifies the size of it. And that's a reason why you might pick this over a camera like that, is if you want to be able to shoot a lot in like, low light situations.
It seems like that has proven itself out in the sample footage, is that it has decent low light, and it's running in an ISO range of like 50 to 6400, which is to me surprisingly low on the high side, but it is a small sensor. It can expand up to 16,000, but that's going to be the noisiest, most garbage, whatever. So like, you're going to get up to 6400 and you're basically going to hit a cap on image quality. That's not that bright for a 1-inch sensor, but it's not bad.
Yeah. Yeah. It also has a flippy screen that goes, it's not flippy in the way you'd normally think. It rotates. So it goes from,
it's like a sidekick.
Yeah. Yeah. So it goes from vertical to, from portrait to landscape, I guess is what we would say. And a cool feature of that is that you can turn it, you can configure it so that when you flip the screen, it starts recording.
Yeah, that's
so you
pretty
can pull
neat.
it out of your pocket and flip the screen into landscape, and it'll just start recording.
Just going to take a break here and think about just how satisfying that would be. I don't know, like anyone who's ever had some sort of device that they can fidget with. Like I had a slide phone, in the mid 2000s, and oh man, just slip, just up and down, up and down, up and down.
Yep.
Or like people who had a sidekick, just like flip that thing out. Whoo boy. Having one of these bad boys where you can just kick that screen, you just flip it out, now you're recording.
Yep.
I mean, I would record so many clips.
I think you can even configure it so that whenever it turns on, you can decide whether you want the camera pointing away from you or toward you. So if you know that, I'm vlogging and most of the time I'm going to want it pointing at me, you can just have it so that it'll automatically rotate and face you. It's pretty cool.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10 for fidgetability.
Yes.
Yeah.
Other neat feature is that it works with the transmitter from the DJI mics.
Okay, yeah, that's super cool. And you can buy it in a package that comes with the mic. And it doesn't have to have the receiver.
Yeah, so you don't have this extra thing plugged into it. It's just like that's built into the Osmo Pocket.
Yep.
And it can use that wireless mic, which again, like perfect feature for vlogging.
Why doesn't Sony do this? Like Sony has their fancy hot shoe thing where like, here's a microphone and you just plop it on the hot shoe. How come I can't buy a Sony camera that works with like a Sony receiver and you don't even have to have the transmitter?
It'd be so much better.
That feels right up Sony's alley.
It'd be a great like ZVE1
Oh my
feature.
gosh, that'd be so cool. It'd be perfect.
Yeah.
But here's DJI, just bringing all this innovation as they just keep doing.
Yep.
So super, super cool. Love that. Love that you can just buy it with it. I guess if it starts having drift issues, you can't do anything about it. But either way, you can, if you have a receiver, you can like repair it to different transmitters, right?
Yeah, you should be able to.
So if you had the single receiver and the single thing, and then you bought an Osmo, you could maybe.
I bet you can. Yeah.
Now you have two receivers all of a sudden or whatever, and you can start pairing those things off.
Yep.
That's cool.
Yep.
It's pretty cool. It looks like the lens on this thing is like roughly 20 millimeter equivalent and like an f2. I don't know if that's f2 or if that's the full frame equivalent of f2. I doubt it's the latter.
Agreed.
So I think it's just like an f2 lens.
Yeah. And 20 millimeter is definitely a tighter lens than what most action cameras have. But of course, this can make up for it by being able to pan around. And so you can do subject tracking and stuff where it can follow you around in a frame, which, something like a GoPro is not going to be able to do. So
right. And if you are running into a limit of you need that to be wider, they do make an adapter, like a wide angle kit thing.
Little lens that clips on the front or something.
Yeah, it's like a moment thing for your phone, but DJI for their stuff. And so you can get like a 108 field of view off of that wide angle, which is, if you're looking at like full frame lenses, that's like 12-ish. It's like 12.6 or something. So like it's 12 or 13 roughly equivalent if you put the wide angle adapter on that thing.
Yeah.
But a 1-inch sensor, like if you're trying to do the math of, how good is this thing actually compared to something that whether that be APS-C or full frame or whatever, it's a 2.7, give or take, crop for 1-inch up to full frame.
Okay.
So if you're looking at a f2, that's like a 5. Oh no, Daniel doing math live again. It's like 5.4, right around there. That's fine. A 5.6 f-stop on full frame is a good, reasonable depth of field. So like
that's not bad.
They don't have to have super, super good autofocus. You kind of have a decent range if you're shooting wide, and basically everything's going to be in focus.
Yeah. I don't know. I think if you're a vlogger, this is an interesting camera.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, even if you're just looking to have an extra thing to, you shoot daily stuff, or maybe you're doing some action cam things, you're riding around on a skateboard or something. I don't know, but it seems like a good, capturing things in motion type thing where you're not in the world where you need an action camera, but you need something that's really stable.
Yeah.
But then also it does all of those other things. Like I think one of the new features for this is it can track you. Mm-hmm. You can set it on a table, have it follow you around as like you walk back and forth or whatever, kind of like what the ZVE1 does in software, except this is doing it with a gimbal.
Yeah.
You can have it do motion time lapses and all this kind of stuff.
It seems like, you kind of hit on something, I think, when you said it's like if you want an action camera, but you don't necessarily need, the same like durability or whatever that an action camera gives you. I feel like for somebody like me, this is really probably a better fit than something like a GoPro, because I don't do extreme sports. I'm not going to be taking it skiing down a mountain or, swimming with it or things like that. But, like if I just wanted a little camera that could record good videos and that's, smaller and maybe easier to work with than my full, Fuji XHS setup, something like this seems like it gives you some interesting capabilities that you don't get from something like a GoPro. But, you do give up a little bit on like the durability because you have this little gimbal thing on top.
Sure.
You're not going to be able to beat it up as much as a GoPro.
It does seem like it locks in decently where, if you are worried about how do I get this from A to B without breaking it, and they come with a case.
Yeah.
And the case makes it even more huge.
Well, but yeah, I mean, for transport, I think it'd be fine. But I'm talking about like, you're not going to mount
if like you're not going to put it on like a mountain bike because you're going to shake the gimbal off or whatever.
Yeah, or like you're not going to mount this on your helmet.
Sure.
So
yeah, not necessarily. I do think that one of the advantages of something like a Pocket 3 is that if you need or want certain shots that you can get off of what's that thing that Rhino makes, like the Arc 2 or Arc 3, that's like a motorized base thing where you can program it or have it track or do whatever, and it can do all of your camera movements for you.
Yeah, like a programmed motion control thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It seems like I don't think you can do like those kind of. Maybe you can do that with the DJI Osmo, but you can kind of get similar stuff of like, here's a motion, I need to do a time lapse, or I need to track this thing, and so you can kind of get similar types of shots with this. That if you wanted to do that with your mirrorless camera or your phone, it's now become kind of more difficult or more expensive.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I liked about the old ones is like if you wanted to get a panning time lapse, just to make it a little more interesting, doing that with a regular camera requires all this extra gear, and you have to like use an app to configure it, and it's just like a pain. And something like this feels like you could just like pop it up and get your shot, and it's kind of cool.
I don't know if they've brought all of these features that you get out of the Osmo Pocket, which it seems like you probably get a little more because they're controlling what the camera sees and they have that data process line. What I'm getting at is comparing something like this to having an iPhone 15 on a regular Osmo. It seems like, you could do your time-lapse things or your motions or your controlled motions or your gimbal stuff and then have your iPhone on a gimbal.
Sure.
Obviously, like there's not really a way to turn off IBIS inside the iPhone, and so like that kind of maybe get weird on an Osmo. But it seems like if image quality and portability, you're going to have your phone with you, and then the Osmo's going to be smaller, and if image quality is most important, you might just be better off with something like a gimbal for your phone.
Maybe.
But the Osmo then I guess has the argument of, here's something that has a data process line so it can do maybe some AI stuff, or it can do the motion tracking and that sort of thing. And then it has an integrated mic. So it would be cool if you could get all these features with the regular Osmo through like a USB-C connection into your phone, and then like have it read the data off the phone and like do all of its AI tracking and the mic controls and all that sort of stuff. Because then you could potentially get the best of both worlds of like, here's the best version of this with a way better camera. But it seems like DJI probably wants to sell more Pocket 3s than fancy gimbals with USB-C connection.
I would bet that the Osmo Pocket is smaller than the Osmo that works with the phone.
You think so? That's probably true.
Because it doesn't have to move as much weight, for one thing.
Yeah, that's very true. I didn't think about that. I thought they would be probably similar, but you're probably right.
The Osmo for the phone would also have a clamp for the phone, which like even just that's going to be pretty bulky. So I think the Osmo Pocket's probably smaller, and I also think that it may just be easier to deal with having a separate device. And the other part of this is like, let's say you're getting a time lapse. An annoying thing about getting a time lapse with your phone is now I don't have access to my phone until that's done.
Yeah, that's good point. What are you going to do while you wait for 30 minutes for this thing to happen?
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's all a good point. I kind of like what they're doing here with the Osmo Pocket 3. I think that it's a pretty big improvement just across the board with all these new features and the integration to the transmitter, and it shoots like decent video at whatever, like 130 megabit per second. Like, it's good for what it is. It's a decent improvement of the other one. I wish it didn't get so much bigger.
Yeah. And it's pretty expensive too.
Yeah, I guess it's like what, $520 or something like that?
Yeah. Yeah, for just the unit. It's pretty high.
Would you buy it with the they have a package that you can buy, so you can like get just the Osmo 3, or you can buy it with this package that's like $670, so it's $150 more. Would you buy the package with all of the things?
I think that since I have the DJI mic, I would not, because I already have that transmitter. If I didn't already have the DJI mic, and if I thought that having that wireless mic was a useful feature for me, I would probably consider it, because $150 and you get the wireless mic and some other things.
Yeah, you get like a carry bag. You get a battery handle, so you can extend the life of it if you're doing tons of recording or really long time lapses. You get the wide angle lens, and you get a tripod handle. So like multiple handles, a bag, the receiver. Like, it's definitely seems to me like that's worth it. That's worth the cost if you need those things or want those things.
You get some cool features. I think the transmitter mic is probably the biggest one. Maybe.
I feel like that wide angle lens and those stands and battery grip is pretty handy.
But then you're up to almost $700. That's a pretty high price.
Yeah, that is kind of pushing it.
When you're comparing it to like a GoPro is $400 to $450. I mean, just for the unit, and the other ones are probably pretty similar price. I don't know. I mean, it's not like wildly expensive, but it's a little up there.
Looks like they still potentially sell the Pocket 2, and you can get that one for like $330.
Oh man, that's pretty cheap.
That is pretty cheap. I mean, it's maybe not the best image quality. I'm trying to find out how much this thing weighs. And the Osmo Pocket Pocket 3, weighs 179 grams.
It's a little bit heavier than a GoPro.
Okay.
A GoPro's about 150 grams with the battery.
Yep. And then the Osmo DJI Osmo, oh gosh, I can't read and say the same thing. The 5 for the phone, 290 grams.
So that's the phone gimbal.
Yeah.
So that's a lot.
It's substantially more.
It's not twice as much, but it's pretty big.
It's pushing it. So would you, I mean, you don't necessarily have a use for these things. You're not like an action cam guy, but jumping out of planes or whatever. Would you go with one of these over something like an action camera? Because I mean, even it's a totally different market, right? Like DJI even sells the Osmo Action, which is like a completely different product from this thing. And you have an Insta360 Go, and it's like also slightly different, but kind of an action cam. How do these compare to those other cameras? Like, should you cross shop this against like the Insta360 Ace Pro or the GoPro 12 or whatever?
Well, I mean, that's kind of what I was getting at earlier. I think that you can't even have this in the running if you're in a situation where you're going to be getting the camera wet and getting sand in it and, clamping it on the front of a car, like all those types of things that action cams are really good at. This is not going to be good at. And so if you're doing something like that, I think this is out of the running. But I think if you're just looking for like a small camera that you can take with you, and if you want to vlog or something, this is probably better than any of those, like especially for a vlog type situation, because this is going to be easier to hold on to. Any kind of GoPro or something like that is, if you're trying to do like a vlog style thing, you have this little tiny square that you're trying to hold in your hand, and it's just not very ergonomic. It's not very easy to aim the way you want. I don't know. I think this is probably better than those for that use case.
Sure. It's kind of a matter of, you can holding it and having it being stable, the Osmo 3 is going to win. If you are using it primarily for vlogging, you could put it on a table and have it do the motion track thing.
Yep.
So like, yeah, it's going to be more better for those things, but also now that you're in the price point of nearly $800 for the microphone and all this sort of thing, I mean, why aren't you just using a ZV-E10 with a mic on it?
Yeah. I think that's the question you have to ask.
Does the ZV-E10, did it get the motion tracky features where it can like follow you around, or that's only in the A7C2 and the ZV-E1?
I think that's right. Yeah.
I
don't
think
the E10 has
$2,000. So,
yeah. I mean, I think to consider this, you've got to be wanting to take advantage of the gimbal features, like doing pans, doing subject tracking, stuff like that. But I think it's a pretty cool vlog option.
I guess it would just be the ZV-10 because the ZV-E is the one with interchangeable lens, and now you're going to buy lenses.
True. Yeah.
But even still, that's going to have better image quality.
The action camera question is interesting, though. I already mentioned the sensor thing, where the sensor on this one's notably larger than any of the other action cameras. So there's the GoPro 12 that just came out a month or two ago. They come out with a new GoPro every year, and that's the newest one. The DJI Osmo Action 4 came out a while back. That's DJI's version of a GoPro.
Right.
And
which I think, didn't we have a Osmo Action 4 versus GoPro 12 thing planned for like a month and a half, and then we never got around to it?
That's right.
And here we are. Whoops.
And then just recently, just a few days ago as we record this, the Insta360 Ace Pro was announced. And that camera looks exactly like a GoPro.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
It seems like it's the best of all the worlds. Like, just as a aside here, when we never did the Osmo Action 4 versus the GoPro 12, and if I was going to recap that really quickly, and I don't know if I can remember everything about these action cams, it's like sport watches where you learn everything you need to the one time you buy them, and then you just try not to pay attention to it because it's too much.
Yep.
Because it's like they're all just cell phone sensors or whatever. It was like the GoPro has a smaller sensor, is worse in low light, but has arguably better color, even though it and the DJI are both 10-bit. It has the 5.3K tall resolution screen, so you can do you can turn the GoPro 360 degrees and the image will stay completely stable because it has a big enough sensor area at a high enough resolution. So like it has got the tall sensor, maybe better color, and then it's got like GoPro specific features like syncing GoPros together and whatever.
Yeah.
And then the Osmo has going for it in that it's a bigger sensor, so you get better low light, cleaner image.
And that did seem to prove out in some of the videos.
Right, but it's maybe worse at color and white balance and that sort of thing.
Yeah, that was the impression I had.
And then that's basically it, right? It's like, and then the GoPro's maybe better at is going to be better at stabilization. And so it's like, do you want better image quality or do you want better like action cam stuff?
Mm-hmm.
And then now the Insta360 Ace Pro coming into this market, like similar price point.
Yeah, I think it's around the same price. They have an Ace and an Ace Pro.
Oh, I didn't realize that they had two.
Yeah, the Ace is a smaller sensor and is worse in some other ways. And I think the Ace Pro is like 380, the regular Ace is 380, and I think the Ace Pro is 450, which puts it right in range with the other two.
All right, so what's the deal with this Ace? I mean, like we're getting super off topic here, but like, what's the deal with this Ace Pro? Like, why? It's coming into a fairly crowded market. Like, there's a lot of camera companies and camera brands, and it's all very exciting. But is there room for a third action cam in here? Well, they even make the 360. Like that's basically it's the same form factor, but the thing pops out. Like, how is this better? Yeah,
that's what I wondered too. And I mean, this thing looks just like a GoPro. Like they clearly, are basically taking cues from the GoPro on it. It seems like their headlining feature for it is that it has a flippy screen. So the entire back screen flips up so that you can see it from the front.
Didn't GoPro used to do that? Or was it that the screen could remove and you could mount one to the top?
I know they had a thing where you could add on a second screen to the top. And then the newer ones have like a little tiny postage stamp screen.
Right.
On the front.
They got rid of that and they're like, here's a front screen also.
Yeah. And so the main difference with this one is that back screen is much bigger, and so you can see what you're doing better. It also gives you the advantage that like if you're trying to put it in a weird spot, maybe you can flip it like halfway up and see from above. Like, so
Yeah, I do like the concept of this is now mounted to handlebars or something,
Yeah.
and you can like look down and see it. That's cool.
Yep.
It seems to me that in 12 generations of action cam, GoPro would have considered to do this at some point, and I assume that they didn't because hinges.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a durability concern. The design of what they've done looks very similar to the Go 3's case.
Yes, it does.
And
it's very similar.
Yeah, so they've got a little bit of experience with this already, but I'm curious to see how that's going to hold up.
Yeah, but like the Go 3, which you have, the Insta360 Go 3, the pill is waterproof or whatever.
Yeah,
You can
and the case,
you can swallow it.
And the case is not.
Don't swallow it. But the case isn't. Yeah, you're not going to chuck the case into a pool or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, hopefully this is now the action cam, right? Like,
yeah,
you're going to be able to take that hinge underwater.
We'll see.
Be able to take it. I'm not worried about the water. You're going to be able to take it to the desert.
Mm-hmm.
What happens when you get sick grit in there and start?
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. That's an open question, but otherwise on features looks pretty good. It has the same 1/1.3 inch sensor size as the Osmo Action 4, so it should be better in low light than the GoPro.
Right, probably similar to the Osmo.
Mm-hmm. It has the highest max resolution out of any of these because it can record up to 8K at 24 frames per second.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that it was an 8K resolution. So one of like the advertised features here is that you can punch into a 4K, and most of these cameras will do that. Of like, how wide are you recording on the lens, because they'll punch into like hyper view or wide or ultra hyper view or whatever they call it, and then you can kind of punch in a little bit. But this one will let you punch into 2x and get a 1:1 pixel, as far as a 2x, essentially a 2x zoom, but you still get a true 4K. Even though it's just not oversampled.
Yep. The max video bitrate is 170 megabits per second.
Okay.
And I couldn't find that spec for GoPro, but the Osmo Action was 130.
Yeah, that's kind of where DJI's sits for these sort of things.
So
it's
a little bit better,
Pocket 3.
maybe a better codec. And it's got some cool features. So one is that you can pause or cancel recordings. So like you can pause a recording and then continue it later if you want. Or if you start recording something and then like, you miss your trick or something, you can cancel it rather than saving that to the card.
When you say trick, you mean like if you're playing a trick-taking card game.
Obviously,
and then you didn't get the trick, then you can record it again.
What do you use your action camera for? Of course.
I mean, the same thing, obviously.
And then here's one other cool feature I wanted to mention. You can pair this camera with a Garmin or Apple Watch and get it to like overlay GPS or speed or whatever information onto your video.
I think that's amazing.
Yeah, pretty cool.
When I saw that feature, I was like, shoot, I just bought a new Garmin and now I need this camera.
Yep. It just, I'm trying to think of how to approach this, but if you compare this to the GoPro 12, the features on this thing to me are way more impressive than the GoPro 12, because the GoPro 12 looks like they took the 11 and barely changed it. It's like they added the timecode sync for multiple GoPros, which, okay, that's cool. But it just doesn't, it feels like more of the same thing. And this seems like it does so many other cool features. It's got, a bigger sensor, higher resolution, flippy screen. Like it, in a lot of ways, this seems better. And it just feels like GoPro is just kind of coasting. But it's always felt like GoPro has still been the premier action camera, and not just because of the brand name. It's like, it seems like their colors are a little bit better. Their stabilization's a little bit better. And it's always just seemed like, you've got all these different options. You can get the DJI Osmo Action, or you can get a Insta360, whatever camera. But it seems like if what you're after is pure image quality or the best stabilization, it's been hard to beat GoPro. And I'm really curious when we're going to get to a point where that's not the case. And I don't know if that's this camera or if we're not quite there yet. But at this point, that's the only reason I would still get a GoPro, is because, if you want like the absolute best quality, that has still been what you have to do. But they're just being left behind so much by these features.
Well, it seems like even just pure image quality as far as noise, maybe they're not. This action cam seems to be better. We've been talking about this thing for like 10 minutes, Daniel. And you haven't even said the word AI, which
felt like leaving that out.
Is the premier feature.
There's a lot of AI going on, isn't there?
Yep, just a little bit. It's the Insta360 Ace Pro. I agree. It's like if you're looking for a feature-rich action camera that can do more things, it's a clear win over the GoPro 12.
Mm-hmm.
But the GoPro 12 has that name brand recognition, and maybe you're more likely to trust it. Of like, I'm going to rig this thing to the sway bar of a dually and get some footage. I trust that I'm going to be able to get that. It's not going to overheat. It's going to, if it gets hit by a rock or something, it's not going to break. And like GoPro, right? And with something like an Insta360 Ace Pro, is that flippy screen going to, get damaged whenever I drop it in the dunes when I'm doing, boogie boarding at White Sands or something?
If nothing else, they're less proven.
Right, sure. Or like if you're skiing with it, if you get snow into it, is it going to hold up? And we don't. I assume that it would. Insta360 has made good stuff, but right, unproven. But like if you're not looking for, doing serious action things, like you don't need something that is going to handle the rough terrain of mountain biking down a thing, or you're not doing really, really extreme stuff that's high risk of damage, and you're more looking for maybe something that can do vloggy things, but then also can do some, less crazy action things. Maybe the features for the Ace Pro make it better. Like you can set the thing out in front of you and, wave your hand and it'll start recording.
Yeah.
You don't have to press the button, and it has all the little extra record features, and like it's autofocus is better. It can do the, we can do the autofocus. Like these things aren't really focusing, but the AI whatever is doing more like scene recognition detection stuff to like get your white balance more accurate. And so like it's taking that extra bigger sensor and pushing the image quality just a little bit more. So like maybe you're going to get better footage and you can see yourself because you have a bigger flippy screen. And so it seems like for all the non GoPro things you're going to do with your action cam, maybe the Insta360 Ace is better.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what's interesting to me to look at is like, because I want something that I can use as an extra angle, for shooting a music video, or just something that, we're going to shoot a short film and we need a shot, like from the side of a car or something, like you need like little like crash cam type things. And that's where I get curious whether something like this or the Osmo Pocket, whether cameras like that are better than GoPro at this point.
I think that depending upon your use case, there is a better something for every use case compared to a GoPro. But the GoPro is still a good default. Mm-hmm. Like the Insta360s have that magnetic clip base type thing where it'll just like snap into place on the base and like it's locked in until you press the thing. It's super easy.
Yeah.
With a GoPro, you're still like screwing a quarter 20 into a thing, and then now it's like blocking the battery door because you put the screw clamp on backwards and you gotta like turn it around, and you're like rigging it up for 10 minutes versus the Insta360 version, maybe you just like magnetized it to your car. Mm-hmm. And they have the Insta360 Go where it's like, here's really good fish angle wide stuff and like the tiniest camera, and you like magnetize it to your shirt or whatever, and it can get into places that you can't put a GoPro. And it's like it seems like there's a better version for all the very specific applications.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't know. And we haven't seen reviews on the Ace Pro yet, or at least I haven't. I've seen some stuff on the Osmo Pocket 3. I mean, I have a feeling like the Insta360 thing is going to be a good camera, but I think GoPro really has their brand recognition going for it and just trust over all this time, people using them. But I don't know. I like to see this competition. I like to see people pushing the limits of that. And I think if GoPro hasn't already been overtaken, they're going to be if they don't really start innovating.
Yeah, it sure seems that way. GoPro, I think, did a lot better whenever they refocused their product line, when they stopped trying to make drones and they like, let's make good action cameras. And then they came out with like the Hero 10 or 11, I forget which one it was. And it was like, wow, GoPro's doing it again. Here we go. And then they kind of sat back on their heels again when they came out with the 12. And it is a competitive market.
Yeah.
I mean, you got DJI, you have Insta360 out here just making all kinds of different stuff. And like GoPro makes the GoPro. And they don't make you know, Insta360 has like the 360 cams and the Go and the Action and like all of these different kinds of cameras. And it's like they're gonna sell. They could sell all of them because they all have different applications. Versus your GoPro is like just the one. And if you're doing a lot of different angle stuff of like, I need the 360 for this thing, so I'm gonna strap it to a model rocket. And then I need the Osmo for this kind of thing because I need to do these time lapses. And then now I have the Ace Pro because whatever, it's like maybe you just live in that ecosystem. I know I mixed up DJI and Insta360, but maybe you're like, I'm used to working with Insta360 footage. So now when I need a new action cam, I'm just going to buy the Ace Pro instead of a GoPro.
Yeah.
So I'm not mixing brands and mixing accessories and I can use it all together.
Mm-hmm.
GoPro just doesn't have that. They have like, there's tons of GoPro accessories, but like they don't have multiple different kind of cameras. They just have like the one camera.
Right. I think this segment's getting really interesting, though, and it's kind of funny to think of how there's a bit of a contrast here between this and drones, where I feel like drones got to a point where they were all kind of about the same, and it doesn't feel like there's huge improvements every time. In this sort of like small action camera, mobile camera space, it feels like we are still getting, you know, reasonable improvements year over year on all this stuff. And I mean, to me, it just seems like the capabilities of these small cameras is advancing a lot faster than, like, let's say our screen resolutions are. You know, most people still have a 4K TV the way they did 5 years ago. And I mean, even though you can buy like higher resolution stuff now, like it's like there's a standard for what makes for good watchable footage. And that hasn't really moved that much in the past few years, but we're seeing all these little cameras like, you know, GoPros and the iPhone camera and all that. We're seeing those get better and better. And I just think it's cool because we're getting to a point where, you know, you don't need this big, heavy mirrorless camera setup to get something that people think is good footage. You can do it with your phone, or you can do it with a GoPro, or, you know, an Insta360 camera. Like, you have all these choices now to get that stuff. And I wonder if we're going to get to the point where those cameras are, you know, effectively indistinguishable from bigger stuff. Not saying that the quality will actually match, but like, I think they're already getting good enough that you can use them to get good footage, and, you know, you're not necessarily like giving much up by not carrying around a big camera. I don't
think we're ever going to get there. I think that while these action cameras are, as far as sensor size, maybe slightly one step up from phone cameras, they're still basically phone sensors. And if anything is going to improve for that sensor size category first, it's going to be the phones. And then we're going to keep seeing all of the computational videography and photography stuff push and push and push and push. And the phone is going to move to replace the mirrorless camera, the DSLR, for more and more applications before something like this is. And like then you're not carrying around a separate thing. You always have your phone with you. I think where these action cams are going to continue to push is like the image quality is going to be equivalent to your primary camera, which is probably your phone. But they're going to be more usable for specialty applications where you don't want to break your phone or you need a second angle, and it's going to be just as good but more interesting because you can do more things with them.
Yeah, I guess that's where they're definitely always going to win in terms of like form factor,
right? That's where they have to differentiate.
Yeah,
because I think that the phone's always going to be about image quality.
Yeah,
at least in, you know, in current generation phones. I was looking up that new Ace Pro, and it's like $550.
Oh, really? I didn't think it was that high. I thought it was $450.
It's expensive.
Okay.
And I think you can get the $379 or something like that is the regular Ace.
Yeah, but that one has like a 1/2-inch sensor.
Right. It's way smaller. It's more, I think that the Ace Pro is positioning itself as like a pro version above your GoPros and your DJI Osmo, because the GoPro 12 right now is $350 on sale. I think it's like $400 not on sale.
Wow.
And
that's a lot cheaper.
And then the DJI Osmo 4 is $400.
Yeah.
And so you're paying, you know, $150, $180, $200 more to get into the Insta360 Ace Pro.
Yeah, I must have missed that. I didn't realize it was that much more expensive.
Yeah. So at that price, it does become a little less disposable, I think. And which, based upon the features and potential, the fragility of that flippy screen, I would think that if you're looking for something that you're going to break, maybe you still go with the GoPro.
Yeah. Or the DJI Osmo.
No. She can still go with GoPro.
It's I think it's an interesting market now.
It is
a lot of choices.
Definitely interesting. I like seeing competition here.
Yeah.
I do wonder, like, if given the choice, would you still go Insta360 Go, or would you go with something like an Ace?
I'm not really inclined to consider the regular Ace. I think the Ace Pro would be, because if I want something like this, I want the best image quality I can get. But I don't know. I mean, I think that the Go 3 has a different set of use cases than these cameras because it can be so small. So I don't regret getting it, especially for like using on a drone. I can use the Go 3 on a drone much more easily than I can use any of those bigger ones just because it's so much smaller and lighter. And I haven't really had the chance to do it yet, but I'm still interested in the idea of putting it like on my shirt while I walk around somewhere or whatever, sure, and like getting, that kind of, like lifestyle perspective type thing. I think there's some cool potential there. So I definitely don't regret it, but I do think that some of these other cameras are interesting, and especially if you're doing something like, I want to clamp this to a drum stand and get like a cool angle, for a video. I think a GoPro or something like this Ace Pro, may be better choices for that.
I feel like I should have borrowed your Insta360 Go on my last trip.
Yeah, I don't know why we didn't think about that. But
yeah,
you probably should
could have got some really fun stuff.
Yeah.
That would have been interesting. One thing we didn't mention, which I thought of whenever you were talking about the 360 Go, is like you can take the camera away from the monitor
on the go, yeah,
and then watch the monitor.
Mm-hmm.
The Ace Pro has an accessory that does that.
Oh, like an extra screen.
They have a little wireless screen that you can use to control the camera and view the feed.
That's super cool.
The same technology, I assume. And you can get a watch band for it.
Fancy.
So then you can like be doing your action stuff mounted like over here outside of your car, you're playing or whatever, I don't know. And then you just look at your wrist. And you got the video feed right there. That
is a really cool feature, and that's something I like about the Go 3, because sometimes when you mount one of those cameras, you're not in a good position to actually look at the screen and see it, or maybe you want to mount it and then start your recording later.
Yeah.
And you can do that stuff really easy on the Go 3. Now, I know like GoPro, for example, has a phone app you can use,
sure,
but those apps always seem so sketchy, and it seems like it doesn't always connect, and I mean, the whole experience is just not very reliable.
No.
And I would rather have a dedicated accessory. So it is cool if they offer that for this.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And that concludes our segment on the Osmo Pocket 3.
we said we needed to talk about it, and we ended up talking about every other camera instead.
The Osmo Pockets have never appealed to me.
I can tell.
I think they're cool, but I have no use for one.
Yeah.
I can't. When I think about what's a cool thing I could do with this, I would rather like use an actual camera. I would use my phone or get an action cam to do it.
Yep.
I mean, I think it's still technically an action cam, but like,
yeah,
you know what I mean, the traditional action camera.
Yep. Well, you can just stay over there with your film camera, and I'll get one of these Osmo Pocket 3s, and we'll both be happy with something that the other doesn't understand.
Yeah, I guess so.
That's it for the show today. Thanks for joining us, and if you liked it, tell a friend so they can check it out too. You can find out more about the show at www.cameragearpodcast.com, and you can find us on Twitter @CameraGearPod. We'll be back with more next week.